Good evening. I'll call to order the December 20th meeting of the Wenham Finance and Advisory Committee. It's 6:31, and we'll get started. So we've got a couple things on the agenda tonight. Quick updates with regard to where we are in the budget process, of course. Leslie's with us. Peter is not this evening, so we won't have a tea update per se, but that's fine. We've got our finance pro.
Right. You just want the budget?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we are scheduled. Actually, there was a delay in the school budget. They were going to do it on the 20th. That has been delayed to the January 2nd. So, right, January 2nd.
Third, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Third, which is
the third.
Wednesday, yeah.
So then that will delay it going to the Board of Selectmen and, handing it off to the Finance Committee, which will be January 16th, Selectmen's meeting. The BOS will, hand it off. And then we will start our budget schedule with the FinCom, and that will be the presentations from all the department heads, which will start on the 23rd of January, which is a Tuesday. That starts at 6:30 unless we need to change it. We're just really reiterating the last schedule, and we'll also have a meeting on the 24th, just to keep in line because of the change in schedule. We can't do anything on the week of that 16th. So we're going to do Tuesday the 23rd and the 24th, and go back to our Wednesday schedules, which will be the 31st, right? 24th, 31st, and 7th. I believe those are the Wednesdays, right? Isn't it what the calendar?
Sounds right. I don't have the calendar in front of me.
So
what we'll do is we'll get the soft copy updated for this.
So right now I'm just securing all of the department heads in their slots to come before the FinCom to present their budgets to you, so that you can, scrutinize over what we have for our budget.
Okay, so we got word just a couple days ago from superintendent and school committee that the school committee had postponed their meeting, which again was slated to be tonight, right?
Is there a
20th.
reason why?
Yeah, I don't think much reason was given in terms of rationale there. I think I don't know the extent. I mean, it's certainly not welcome news, because it makes us that much less able to understand where we are from an accurate, going into our official process of crafting and scrutinizing the budget, department by department. And before that, of course, the Board of Selectmen being able to send over to us the beginning of that process. And so there is still that.
Right, because the one unknown fact is they're
yeah.
operating.
Yes.
So we don't know where they are going to come in. So that's
Right.
the one unknown piece right now.
Right.
Really.
Which is a big piece.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah. So that's unfortunate. I mean, I don't know how much it sets us back from our ability to deliver on time. Of course, it won't. We'll just have to. We'll have a kind of a compressed window of these meetings. Beginning in January, which is really when kind of budget season officially kicks off. But I do wonder the extent to which if you have policy implications of that being compressed as well at BOS, as it relates to whether or not we need to pursue an operating override. That would get tricky, I suppose, in a short time window.
Yeah.
So has that delay by roughly 2 weeks affected the BOS or FinCom schedule, or we'll still stick to our schedule, we'll just have less review time?
You're really going to stick close to it. So we would have started, the BOS would have done it, the 16th, and we would have had it on the 17th of January.
Right.
So we're pushing it to the following week and having 2 days back to back, and then we'll go on that weekly schedule until February 7th.
Okay.
Right.
And will that budget be the voted on budget from the school committee?
It is.
I think so.
Yes, that's their.
That's their number.
That's what they will have voted on.
I think,
yes.
I just want to
That is their number. That is the number we need, so that we know going forward.
Right.
What they're operating. I mean, that's the big number for us. Yes. I'm not actually sure. I don't want to say that they vote on it, but that is what.
It's their approved budget. I just don't know if it's formally voted on.
School committee votes on it, I think. So Jeff and Mike will present
Okay.
the proposed budget.
Okay.
I believe, I'm making the assumption that they have already, based on the calendar, and that school committee's working it up, or they're in that process now
Okay.
of working that up, and we'll vote and present it to.
But it's a pretty
to
final
towns.
product.
At that point, it's pretty final from the standpoint of what we then need to work with.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
what they're
ours.
requesting.
Right, exactly. Right. So, so that set us back a little bit, but again, we'll catch up, and we, anxiously await that, of course, as a critical component of our FY19. Okay, thanks, Leslie. Any other changes with regard to, there was some more good news on the fiscal front in terms of
Extra 10,000?
yeah, we've got the grant for, tonight we'll be talking about for the tree survey.
Yep.
I thought we had some additional,
Excuse me. Yeah, Peter sent an email this afternoon that said they found an additional 10,000 in, I don't remember where it came from. Yeah, and he said every little bit counts.
every little bit counts, yeah, exactly.
That's what I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah,
And it was noted to you as well that we had our free cash certified, right? in
Free cash
FY17
certification,
At
yep.
1.23.
yep.
It was revenue from the state.
Okay.
Yeah, cherry sheets.
Oh, the
Thank you,
cherry,
thank
yeah,
you.
that's it,
Yeah.
cherry
Oh, it
sheets,
was
that's
too.
right.
Okay.
Yes, so that's gonna be an additional, yes, 10,000.
So state funding looks to be in a good place, at least at this stage
That's
anyway.
right, yep, that's what he sent out,
Good,
yes.
Good. And I assume you kind of factor in level resources there from the state in terms of grants year to year?
Yes, and
Okay.
then, there's one more thing, it also came in with the tech, right, was it the tech school? That came in, with the PERIC, so with our Essex retirement, we had budgeted around the 9%, and we just got the numbers, and we were right on target, $200 off, so we're right on target, so that's good, that didn't change. We just got that letter in, so we're at, I think it's like 728, and we budgeted for that, coming in FY19, so that's a good thing too.
Good.
All right, great. Okay, so any other questions generally about the process? I know a lot hinges on the calendar, and thank you all again for meeting so close to the holidays just this evening. We did want to sneak it in for the next couple, for the reasons that are the next couple items on the agenda, which are reserve fund transfers, and these need to be made timely, of course, in a timely manner. But other than that, it'll basically hinge on our next meetings in January, and we'll get the soft copy of the schedule out, which is likely to change a little bit from time to time, but is, pending BOS changes and any changes that we need to make to accommodate our schedules.
Great, thanks.
Sure. Okay. So we've got 2 reserve fund transfers. The next up on the agenda is to approve a transfer to fund the remaining balance for the portion of the contract with Bartlett Tree to perform a tree inventory.
Background questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we won't go to a vote without discussion first, definitely, so. Some information was sent out beforehand as to the proposal for the tree survey itself. And there's quite a bit of background in terms of this initiative and this kind of focus on trees from our tree warden department as well. So feel free to just kick it off with questions, and I'll try to fill in where I can.
Okay, one question is, I'm not sure how it works with local town contracting, but did the town get estimates from different companies, or do we have some ongoing agreement with Bartlett?
I don't think we have a Bartlett agreement per se, and I don't know the degree to which this type of contract, whether it's the size of it.
just
Leslie, you may know
wondering how we
better
chose
for
Bartlett.
procurement purposes.
Procurement, so it's under
The-
the 30, I think it's 35,000.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure of all the requirements for it, but
So under 35, you don't have to get multiple estimates?
I'm not sure of all of because Peter is the procurement officer.
Oh,
So, he's the one that did this whole work specification, so I'm guessing, but I can find out those answers for you and get back to you. I don't wanna,
Okay.
tell you wrong about the.
It may not have related to this go-around for the specific project. We've had proposals in the past for different levels of surveys for the town tree, because so essentially,
I know there's a history of the tree inspection
right.
issue, and it's great that we got the grant, and they're looking forward to getting the reserve fund transfer. It's just some of the background I'm not as clear on.
In terms of the way in which the bid was solicited, or for what reason from Bartlett, and if there were competitive bids
Yep.
along those lines. Yeah, I guess I don't know that. Peter would have overseen the obtaining of the bid.
Okay.
I
So,
didn't have the majority of, this.
Sure.
This was more of
Yeah.
his lane.
Okay.
So.
yeah, I mean, I think that one of the reasons this goes back a while is because we, of course, want to get a formal approach to handling, plantings and our plans for trees throughout the town. The survey gives us an understanding of what's there already, what's healthy, and what condition. And is done formally. You probably read through the contract using various software to provide some sort of, give some rigor to the analysis there, or to the survey itself. I sense this was on the lower end, if I recall, from prior years' discussions of what a full survey and assessment of the town's trees would run.
Yeah, it's under 10,000.
I have a couple numbers, but I don't feel confident enough from my memory that they are, in fact, as high as I was thinking.
Okay, I was just curious about the process and, competitive bids.
Yeah, sure. The procurement rules that, is it 30,000 that require multiple bids?
35.
Yeah, but as to why specifically Bartlett was chosen versus others, or,
They're a great company, I was just curious.
yeah, no, it's a fair question. It's a fair question.
And then, are we doing the arbor scope that's in here for an additional 1,500? Because the request for transfer is 9850.
9850.
Well, or less than that.
It seems to be like
5350.
that difference, right, of no to arbor scope when I looked at, because we got a grant for 5,000.
And it
And
would
the
be
total is-
inclusive. So he went for the grant, so the cost for Bartlett is 10,350, right? Is that what you're asking?
Well.
He went for so the grant was,
So 9850.
right,
And we got 5,000.
right,
and
but the
request
total
for-
cost with Bartlett is 10,350.
So it does include that arbor scope?
That would be
Okay.
the total, yes.
And then I just have a question about that. When you read about the arbor scope, it talks about, it's reliant on internet connection all over Wenham, just based on personal experience with multiple carriers over 11 years. I have a issue with internet connection, and I'm assuming that's been addressed and thought through with our, $1,900, oh no, $1,500
yeah.
request for the arbor scope. I'm just assuming it's functional, because it says in the contract, we're not responsible for any malfunctioning.
I think that they probably call it out because it's a third-party vendor software.
The arbor scope?
Exactly, and not Bartlett's
Yeah,
in-house
Bartlett's.
solution to which they would,
I just want to
stand
make sure
behind.
someone is pretty assured it's going to work around town.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, with our abysmal cell coverage and the like,
Right.
you'd hate for anything to rely on it,
And
but
it sounds like you need a live internet connection
I
for it to work
This-
out in the field, or the woods, as it were.
okay, yeah, that could be. And obviously Bartlett would be in the best position to address that if we hadn't already in other discussions.
Okay.
The sense I got was for that contract, there's a time period attached to it, obviously, the use of
3
that
years.
license.
Yep.
The sense I got was that we would then have access to, or the town, anyone, the town tree warden primarily, but town hall would have access to that, not only the underlying data and results kicked out from the survey itself, but the use of the software to manage, interpret, better understand the results of the survey. That's a sense I got.
So it's not as dependent on this live out in the field or the woods, as it were, connection that's mentioned. Again, I'm just curious, just because I'm just coming onto this. Yeah,
Right.
it says on page 5, it needs, you need to, in the end of the first paragraph, you need to maintain a live internet connection.
Yep.
I don't have the contract.
To ensure
So it's the
optimum
MIA risk
performance.
I
assessment.
don't have it in the package.
Interlocal insurance agent. Here, you're more than welcome to look at mine. The one thing I was gonna say is that, so on page 5,
Yeah, it's part of
That's
this
from the
package.
prior
Do you have
meeting.
this package? Do you have this one?
that's it, yeah.
So I was just
Thank you, Leslie.
curious, and I can't.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure.
that's a very good point.
What page?
It's
I-
page 5.
So page 5, it's a web app, so I think that probably what they're saying is to use,
Yeah. It says you must have a live internet connection
Right.
separately from this agreement to ensure optimum performance.
Right.
Sounds like it's out in the field.
right, my guess would be, so this is saying to utilize Arborscope to interface with Google Mapping. da, 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 da. I don't know that,
And it may be easy enough to do a workaround if you don't have a live internet connection. I'm just curious, just because that's such.
I don't know if this relates
Or-
to their, this is the licensing agreement, so I don't
know.
necessarily. We would be if we sign up for a 3-year contract to
Yes.
use the software. But my point is, I thought of that as after the fact. So for example, if you think of like, any web app to which you're given a login for any period of time for the service contract that you have, you're required to have a internet connection. So it could be kind of boilerplate in that respect, like Morningstar Direct, for example. If you have Morningstar privileges and a user contract, you can access underlying data, but only via a live internet connection. There's nothing downloaded to a local drive, for example. Whereas, if that's what they're referring to, I don't think it really refers to it's all under the heading of licensing agreement, so I don't know that it refers to the collection of the data itself. I would hope that they would have through, and they talk about multiple GPS. I think they use some pretty sophisticated GPS right here.
So in a current life, I do read contracts, so this seems to be for, under the licensing agreement, that if we are to use the software, we, the town, have to have an internet connection and a web browser that's compatible with the software
As a web app.
as a web app. So I don't think we need, I mean, we can get legal counsel, and I would think they're stating that if we are to use this, they're stating to us that to use this, we need to have an internet connection and a web application.
Right.
Or like a Google, web browsers, so whatever you want to use for that, Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer. That's what it looks like to me that they're stating in this. So it's not really around town, but it's actual use the software for it. So they're not taking liability. If the town is, for some reason, we decide to cut out internet service
Right.
to here, they're not responsible for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it reads to me.
I definitely agree, and I think that
Good catch, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, a great question. And whether or not they do rely on other data collection elements beyond what they describe here with, Everest and Floodlight technology, some kind of branded measures of GPS data collection. But they talk about a couple of those and seem to spell out the benefits of, referring to reliability and accuracy of data. So I would expect that's all in it, but the interpretation, it's sort of like I would hope that what we would get as a result of this survey would be more user-friendly and more easily interpreted than something of a CAD file. But if you had a CAD file, you couldn't do much with it unless you have a CAD program to
No, I
interpret and
understand.
work with
Yeah,
it, and I think that's what
was
they're.
reading it as it was out in the field connectivity. But I understand the distinction that you made.
So I would look at, for me, not to pontificate, so I would think that if someone is out in the field, they can't use it without internet access.
Right.
So they can use their phone, they can use something portable or something else. I think what they're saying is the same thing. No matter where you need it, you need internet connection, because it's a software. It's a web app.
Certainly for the licensing that we would have.
Correct.
However they aggregate and collect the data, They may, if they want to build their own internet, they could. I'm not sure that.
Yeah, it's just basically saying if you want to use Uber, you need internet.
Right.
That sort of
Right,
application.
right.
So I think that's it. If it's sort of that point, if they're in a dead zone in the town and they can't get internet access, it won't work.
Yeah.
Right, which is my
But,
original
and it's
question,
our
right.
responsibility, not theirs, for internet access.
Right, and so then the question was, is there a workaround that exists with this? But anyway, we don't need to belabor it any longer, because we can
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah, we can take this as a follow-on question for Peter.
I would think, again, reviewing contract, I'm not a lawyer, but review contracts before. Someone is not responsible, if you're offering something, it's not responsible for infrastructure. You're just saying, again, we'll just take Uber or whatever app is, that's the app, that's they're responsible for it. They're not responsible for, Verizon or AT&T.
Right.
So that's what this is limiting them to, is just the access. So the person using it is responsible for the access.
Yes.
I don't think there's a workaround for this, because they're not gonna take on the we use the term exposure, but the exposure of infrastructure. So to me, this reads okay. If we want a table for legal counsel to take a look at it, I think that's fine. But for me, it doesn't seem to be that big of an issue, if I'm answering your question.
Sure. No, mine was just like the next step, practically speaking,
Yeah.
when you get out in the field, is it usable because of the dead spots? But I don't know
No,
that we
it
know,
wouldn't be.
so we can,
I still don't take this to say that they need an internet connection in the field whatsoever.
Only if
That's
it's
the license agreement for our use of the software.
correct. I don't know if it's a portable, like if someone's on a laptop.
Well, they
someone
talk
wants to use
about
it.
the technology, I mean, GPS, this is satellite-based, of course, and doesn't, GPS in no way needs internet, so you could walk around and say, this is a maple right here, this is an elm right here, here's the diameter at, chest height or 4 feet, whatever it is, and they talk about the basic methodology. You're making a visual assessment as to the health and condition of the tree, and of course, as an expert, know what type it is. I can't imagine that needing an internet connection. I would hope that they perform these services in all sorts of areas where there's no internet connection, even though that's kind of scary to think about, because
Yeah, unless
Wait,
the
can't be
software's on
worse
a
than ours.
laptop, unless someone's on a laptop using the software, that's the only reason I could see.
true,
So,
yeah.
Again, I don't think that's an issue for us.
Well,
to be
we
honest.
can, certainly we'll take it as a follow-on question for Peter to ask of Bartlett, in terms of how do you handle weak internet connections in towns such as ours and neighboring communities when you do these types of surveys, using this software that they are calling Arborscope, thank you. And that's a line item as well that isn't required for it, so if we were to not pursue it, we'd still have the survey, so leads me to believe that the underlying data and the results are not, visible without the proprietary Arborscope, but are probably of more value, because you can manipulate, I'm sure have different views, 3D views, street level views, I'm sure that's the type of thing that this provides for an additional fee, and if it was deemed warranted, then that's what we would cover, what would pay for.
Leslie, can I get a clarification on something? Total cost is $10,350?
correct.
Right. What was the rationale for only asking for a grant? It's an unusual number of $98.50.
I talked to Peter, and I don't know if it came in a little bit more, but he went for
I understand that.
I assume what he assumed maybe was gonna be the amount. And they came back and they basically gave us half. That's what they did for most communities. So I'm not sure where that first number came up with, but the actual contract came in from Bartlett at
So Bartlett
10,350.
came in at 10,000.
With that
Over than what we
1,500, right? Because it was 98.50, right? Oh,
Yes,
that's why,
yes.
because he added the 1,500
Yes.
of the Arborscope. So 98.50 was the
Oh.
original Bartlett. He added the 1,500 for the Arborscope. So he went for the grant application at 98.50. They came back only giving us half, which is what they did
5, yeah.
for the majority of communities.
Right.
It was a
And,
tough market, or a tough,
Right, and Bartlett also came in at a higher rate because of Arborscope.
well, because of the Arborscope, because we
Yep.
added that,
Yep.
so.
Oh, we added that.
Well, I don't know, it was added to the contract, so I don't know who did that, because that was really Peter, so we need to ask Peter that question. This is me coming in with the reserve fund transfer and not knowing total detail about the grant as well, so that's Peter. But
And you get the good fortune of having people just learning about this, coming on the scene with lots of
And I-
questions.
yeah.
So again, just to go over the numbers.
Yes.
We ask of the grant of MIIA, Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance Association, for again, the risk associated with understanding our trees not falling on power lines,
The 9850.
$98.50.
Right. We were granted 5,000.
Granted 5,000, leaving 48.50, to which we added the additional arboscope cost of
Yes, and that would be a
13.50.
Peter question of why that
13.50.
1,500.
Arbor scope was
1,500, which comes to a
1,500,
total of
which brings it to
10,350,
53.50 net.
Yes.
I get
So-
11,350.
right?
5, was 13, yeah.
It's in their number.
He told me
98.50 plus 1,500. So we asked for 98.50 on this guy
Yeah.
right here. We get 5. So we need to transfer 48.50 in addition to,
What's the,
if we're doing the arbor
RFT for 5,350?
10,350.
10,350, correct? Yes, yes. Okay, yes, it's 10,350 the total contract.
right?
The grant is 5,000, so we're going to ask for a reserve fund transfer of 5,350 from our reserves.
I guess the question is, where is the 10,350 that we see?
What do you get when you add that?
Because you're adding the original cost here, of the Wenham roadways, we're
93.50.
sub at
You come up with
98.50.
11 versus 10.
11,350, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
of the 98.50 plus
10,850,
1,500.
500,
It's 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is 11.
350.
Yep,
It is,
so it's off
Okay.
$5,000.
So that's what we need to clarify, right?
so it should be.
Certainly, we're in this 350 mode. We know that
Mm-hmm.
that arbor scope seems to be in the mix. How else would we get there?
So it should be 6,350.
Yeah.
Can we still move forward? or
And
is that
we,
not-
I just have a technical question.
Yeah.
So when we vote reserve fund transfer, that just puts the money in the account, and then the town executes the
Correct.
contract.
We need to move the money before we execute. So
Right.
when you sign off on these reserve
It
fund
just puts
transfers.
the money in the account.
Right, we're gonna put this into what we call the tree inventory. We have to set up an account for that. So the grant money will go in there, as well as the transfer.
So it doesn't go to existing tree warden, this is a separate
No,
account
we're gonna
altogether?
keep this separate.
Okay.
Grant money needs to be put in his own GL, and we're gonna set up a general ledger to complete this particular contract. We're gonna keep it totally separate.
Yeah, so there's
Right.
there's time for us to do a reserve fund transfer and then get our questions
And we need to
answered
have this
before we
request
execute
done
anything.
before we can go ahead and expend anything.
Mhm.
So that's,
Okay.
needs to be signed off on,
Mhm.
so.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, he told me, I took the 5,350 because we went back and forth in emails, so I took the 5,350, so I'll take that as, but it should be 6,350 based on the documentation here. We were just, so. I think we can vote on it. I have the form, you haven't signed off anything, so.
Yeah,
if
I mean,
you-
can we vote on 6,350, and then if we only need 5,350, we have it. That's why, one of the reasons why I asked the question, because it's just putting the money in the account.
Right.
You don't
Correct.
have to
Right.
execute
Correct.
it, yeah,
Correct.
that
I-
way.
If we are moving an extra 1,000 though,
You gotta
that
do
isn't
another-
needed,
You would need to do another approval for a reserve fund transfer.
Correct, if we didn't move the 6,350, and that's what we
Yeah,
need, correct.
so we should
We
remove,
should move it.
the 6,350, so it's
If it's
there.
not spent.
right?
That's
That's the question, if it wasn't, what if this number was correct
But
theoretically, and we move an extra 1,000
just
inadvertently?
follow free cash if we don't spend
Goes
it.
to free cash,
Mhm.
if on,
Mhm.
right,
The grant
unspent.
money needs to be spent for what it is spent. We're
Right.
saying that we're gonna move the rest of the money
Sure.
to meet the contract that
Right,
we're gonna initiate with Bartlett. Tree.
okay.
It's a good catch,
So-
Karen.
I have a quick question here. So, after this work is done under the schedule of work I'm reading, a separate proposal will be submitted for all recommended work. So does this drive the budget for tree removal for FY18, or is it too late in the process?
No, it's not, I don't think it's direct, it could inform discussions about tree removal budgets in general, but it's not designed to tie to that budget. This isn't to say, here's what should be taken down.
Yeah,
We have a small budget for that as it is, and the DPW will contract out, and we'll hear more about that process when it's needed. Limb falls onto a, sidewalk, for example, the process for doing that. We're not really proactively going out based on the results of this survey to say, here's what should be taken down, but it is falling under the heading of a risk assessment for that reason. So it gives us a good step in that direction of understanding the risks and what maybe should be taken down.
yeah, I
More formally.
just hope it doesn't expose the town
Uh,
by a report that says X, and we haven't budgeted for Y.
Good point,
I-
good point.
Because we haven't had when was the last time we've had a tree survey?
Oh, long time.
Yeah,
Never?
I wouldn't be surprised if we never did based on.
So this is a new
yeah.
process. That's
Right.
I just think we should think about that going forward.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think, under the grant proposal guidelines, clearly they're looking to help us
Right.
kind
Oh,
of
yeah, absolutely.
understand these risks, but I would assume that we're not taking on any additional liability.
No, they are. I'm
Yeah.
more concerned about the town taking on some.
No, that's what I mean. We, as in the town, aren't taking on more responsibility by saying we have this assortment of trees in this condition generally. But I think Bill Tyak would be able to explain more so that process of the immediate risks
Okay, good.
that this might even uncover a bit more so, as well as they know the trees and what needs to be dealt with for public safety.
I think what Peter has said is also, we do this particular thing. It'll also give you that analogy of what could be done and not, and spend our money wisely. If,
Absolutely.
we planted some trees, I guess mostly on Cherry Street, correct? Or some on Cherry Street, right?
A few have just gone on Cherry
So
Street.
he's saying this will
Great
give
start.
a scope of what kind of needs to be done and where to do it and spend our money wisely on
Yeah.
the limited funds that we do have.
Yes, I think it's a great
Right.
strategic
So,
move.
right, that's really what it is. I guess it's been talked about for
For years, and
right,
should
yeah.
serve as the basis for
Really
the.
close,
Yeah,
really close.
just a couple $1,000. I see this as serving as the basis for the tree warden's work, really, for the next several
absolutely.
years, for that to be supported by this initial work.
Yeah, it's great, we got the grant, too.
Yep, that helps defray it pretty meaningfully.
Yes.
So we can then, I know that these are, I don't know the timing of paying Bartlett for this contract. Do you know offhand?
No.
I mean,
Certainly can find out for you.
we can, and we have a following question as to the service, how it works,
Yep.
capturing it in the
Yep.
field, the data, and then we can vote, if there's no other questions or discussion, on an amended amount that we believe to be the amount for the reserve fund transfer to pay Bartlett. So, and that is, you've got 11,350, right?
No,
60,
we're only gonna do
60,
60.
Yeah, so-
350?
The original amount was
6,350.
9,850.
Yep,
We got a 5,000 grant, so we subtract that out, and then it leaves you with 4,850, and then we
and the
add on
1,500
Arbor
for Arbor Scope,
and it brings you
okay,
to 6,350.
okay. Okay, so
RFT.
then I will move to approve a reserve fund transfer in the amount of $6,350, which is an amended amount from what we see here in our packets of $5,350, from the reserve fund to a new account to be created
Yep.
named Tree Inventory, to which the grant will also pay in from Massachusetts Interlocal Insurance
Station, yeah.
Association, thank you. The grant received in the amount of 5,000 of the requested 9,850. And we'll vote on this, and we'll have the following questions as well. If that motion is sufficient?
Second the motion.
Thank you, Carrie. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thanks very much. Okay, we've one more RFT request, and that is for the OPEB actuarial analysis. Information, some light bedtime reading was also in your packets on this. ASB 45 results. Odyssey Advisors, Information, Powers and Sullivan, Auditors,
What is GASB?
General Accounting
Accounting
Standards
Standards
Boards.
Board. Yes.
Yeah, it's sort of like GASB and GAAP accounting principles, all followed. So we accepted the financial reporting results and management letter presented by Powers and Sullivan as the audit committee for their every other year review of the town's finances, in which they're evaluating our certifications, our processes for accounting for, among other things, cash, and the accounts and the work that Leslie and Chris do to maintain orderly town finances. So they're not commenting so much on the municipal finance insofar as budgeting, but of course how well the town is performing its job with respect to GAAP and the GASB rules that we have to follow. To summarize, we're an easy client, I think. I think we have relatively straightforward finances. That comes as no surprise, I think, and that's both good and bad, because perhaps it means there's fewer upside opportunities too to solve our revenue problems. Exciting ones on the horizon, but who knows? And the reserve fund transfer. So that the details of the OPEB actuarial analysis, as well as the financial statement analysis, are provided, if not in full here, in electronic copy, because I want to say that this is a biggie here.
Biggie.
And
yeah.
it's not as big here, so you should have a soft copy in advance of this
So
meeting.
I just gave you copies
Yeah.
of the last one that they did. The
Oh, right.
actuarial is what it was. And this, so normally it was done every 3 years that we're required to do this under the GASB rules. It's GASB 74 now, and we have to do it every 2 years. So it wasn't budgeted in 18.
So the rules changed from 3 to 2? Or
Yes.
the town decided
Nope,
to make a change?
it's
Oh, okay.
changed, so we have to do that. So we didn't budget for the actuarial in 18, so we need to do that. And we had Odyssey, the Odyssey company that did that for us in, 2 years ago right now? And they charged $5,000 at that time, and they have, the contract is in there for the current year, and they've gone up to $5,500. They're quite responsive between that. I mean, we've written them a couple of times now, and they get right back to us. They're, so we've been very happy with them. Our unfunded liability right now is about $5 million. Coming out of the GIC, it'll drop about $400,000, so we'll just be around the $4.6 million. So just so you guys know that. Not that it's much, but it's a little bit. And we've approved the investment policies, so that's a good thing. We have a separate OPEB policy now, and that fund, so hopefully that will start making us a little bit more money, though it will sit there. So we've done definitely things. We're doing the 10,000 every year, and they'll do another actuarial, and we'll see where that comes in and what we can do, maybe changes or whatever. So
Right, 10,000 increase each year?
Yep, so in 19 we're doing 40, this year, 18 we did 30,
Right.
so that was there, because it's about 37 years until we have this paid off.
At this rate?
Yeah, at this rate,
Yeah, it's a
yes.
token contribution, really,
Yep.
towards the unfunded liability. But not unlike the situation every other town is in around us.
Right.
Well, most.
Well, we're funding it, just
That's
in
right.
small
Right,
amounts.
exactly.
Some don't.
That's the key right
Yeah,
now.
so it's a favorably upon for ratings and
So
everything
we've-
else.
Yeah, right, yeah, when we've moved forward, we're doing, better than we have, so. So we're looking for a reserve fund transfer of the 5,500 so that we can form the actuarial with the Odyssey company, as they've been, very, like I said, receptive. And once they do that, we'll have a set, they'll do an actuarial, and they'll actually, I believe we come in front of you and the selectmen, and they'll do a presentation, so.
Okay, so this reserve fund transfer is for services not yet rendered?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep,
Okay,
have
sorry.
done nothing.
Wanna make
No,
that
we've just asked a
clarification that
couple of
it's separate from-
questions about, you
Yeah.
know, and with no contract. It's just that they've answered that and they've been receptive. That's why we're going back to them. And it seems that nobody's had any problems. The audit committee knows them and all of that, so.
Good. Yeah, good understanding of the town and
Yep,
our
yep,
challenges and
absolutely,
the
yep.
like. Okay. Okay, any other questions on the actuarial analysis and the request to pay for it? Okay. Then I'll move to, for yet another reserve fund transfer in the amount of $5,500 to, is this going to a new account?
No, it's called the actuarial valuation account. That's what
Okay.
we have. We have it set up. That's where we would put the money if we had it budgeted, and that's where it will go.
Okay.
Yep.
So the reserve fund transfer again is $5,500 to the actuarial valuation account?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thanks, David. All in favor?
Okay.
Great. Okay, exciting RFTs. We're moving money around before budget season, when we get into the meaty stuff. So looking at the agenda, I know we had covered kind of just at a high level, some of the budget calendar pieces with more details to follow. We also had some minutes to approve, but unfortunately, I don't see any hard copies in here. Does anyone else?
I printed out a hard copy.
You
I
did.
actually have a couple comments.
Okay, okay, great. Any
Do it
chance
at
you
the
have
next
them,
meeting?
Leslie? We'll probably will need to defer to, especially if you have comment. Do you want to share those now, or is that, we can
Doesn't
take them
matter.
under?
I don't know how, if we need to go into minutia in
Well-
a FinCom meeting, or just say, I have typos to fix.
Okay,
Or if you go through them one by one.
Is it different than that? Okay.
There's nothing substantial, just a typo.
hey,
I would call them typos. I mean, I have one clarifying phrase, but all the rest I would say are typos.
okay.
But, do you want to do it at another meeting? If you
Yeah,
We can't, what?
okay.
If you can't
Yeah,
approve them
agreed.
because it's now under the new
how far
laws that
away-
we
how
have to
far
do it
out are
within
we?
the 30 days, and we're at that 30
Oh.
days, correct?
I thought it was.
I thought it was
90
more,
days.
no, more than that, or second or third meeting in more than
Is
30
it?
days,
Isn't it
because
90 days?
No, it's not 90 days, it's
not.
30 days, but it is.
whichever is longer, though, right?
Okay.
In the second or third
So we're good for
meeting.
the
Oh.
next.
Is it second or third, Catherine? Do you happen to know?
No.
We are at our, because we were called to order at the schools, at the school committee meeting
Right, but I
Right.
think I checked, yes.
with, and this is for the meeting that predated that, so
Yeah,
this is the one
this is
prior
the
to
second
November
meeting
20th.
after.
This is the second meeting after, I can't recall if it's second or third. Has anyone else had a chance to look at the soft copies or have questions or comments?
No, but that's okay.
I know they've only been in your possession for a day or so, if you're comfortable moving forward with them. I have looked at them, I didn't have anything substantive, why don't we, in the interest of voting to approve these as amended if needed, can you indicate where the substantive changes might
Sure.
be?
Yeah, they're all typos. I just had one kind of clarifying phrase. Under FY19 budget discussion, the first bullet, Wenham student enrollment shift is down, resulting in the budget being 110,000 less than the 350,000 placeholder used in the budget. And I just wanted to add a clarifying phrase of, kind of what baseline are you coming from? So I'd said that difference is for the increased contribution or the increased delta from last year's Hamilton Wenham Regional School District contribution.
Okay, so you're looking to basically clarify
Yeah,
that.
just clarify what, because it's budget, and we're talking about town operating budget, and we're talking Hamilton Wenham District budget, and all these bullets. And so it's just clarify, it's not 110,000 for the entire school operating budget. So I think it's just the delta expected from the enrollment shift.
Right, correct.
just
So
wanted
it's
to-
attributed to the enrollment shift. So
A
Wenham's
delta.
student enrollment shift is down, okay, so, relative to, the carrying forward last year's enrollment, burden, our portion relative to Hamilton's, carrying that forward 1 year, given NASDAQ's projections, the expected was 315,000, attributable only to the apportionment formula shift year to year.
Yes.
Which was 110,000 less. So I think this is a complex subcomponent of a much larger operating item anyway, being the school
Yes.
budget, and can be confusing as such, and I struggle to find a better way to word it. But I think what you're saying is that,
Because someone could read that, because we know that people read these a lot. To be, you know, the budget being 110,000 less, that's just the delta we're talking about. It's not
right.
the total budget. So, I mean.
The portion of the budget attributable to the enrollment shift and nothing else.
Yes.
Separate from the school's actual increase or decrease in their level services year-over-year expenses.
Correct.
Or
Yeah.
year-over-year final line item that they're presenting to the towns.
Yeah,
So
and it
it's-
just reads unclear to me, especially
Okay.
when you read, you know, all the other discussions about budget. You know, we're talking about Hamilton Wenham budget down here,
Right.
we're talking about town operating budget here, you know, a delta. So,
Does her clarification, sorry, Cody, is correct and makes sense?
I think so. I think this is a matter of context. The fact that we're talking about the apportionment formula, we carve that out, and we'll say things like, over the last 4 years, the apportionment shift alone has resulted in an increase in 1.2 million in net expenditures to Wenham alone. And so we think about, if you say roughly 300K a year and it comes in at 200, that's a piece that we're looking to kind of highlight
yes.
in that. And I think that it can get lost without the context of, we're starting at saying, this is a big school budget, and in fact, we don't have the school budget yet. You're saying just the enrollment shift itself.
So if there's a straightforward way to put that into context, that was my suggestion.
Okay.
If you don't think it's needed, then it's fine not to. Just when I was reading it, it reads like it needs context to me.
Is this something that we could amend?
She just looked it up. It's
Here and now.
30 days or
I thought it
3
was
meetings,
3 meetings.
whichever is latest.
Okay,
So we
So
could
we're at
do the
meeting
20.
2.
okay.
We could do the
So
23rd.
we could make a small tweak to it. We could do it now, or we could just simply wait until the next go-around,
Do the
when we'll
23rd.
have the school committee meetings to
The
present as well.
amendment be included in tonight's minutes for voted on in the next minutes?
No, I think she has
Probably
got a
amend the
lot of other-
minutes, maybe.
things.
Is it?
I think she has a lot of other corrections,
Other
too.
typos.
Okay, I
Lawyer.
mean,
So wouldn't
Typos
you,
are okay.
yeah,
So-
so you noted the amendment, so we can't
Have
go
you
for,
agreed on what you want
if you
to
agree on
say?
it, then,
perhaps not the specifics. I kind of muddled through some of it, and we could, why don't we spell that back? And if you could reflect it in the minutes?
and then approve it
Or
for the
what
next
you're-
meeting?
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
would assume you'd,
Have a, what-
Amended minutes, basically, from this meeting is what
and
I'm
then you
referring
approve
to.
it for on the 23rd, right? Wouldn't you do it, or you want to do it tonight?
We could, or we could just simply take it offline, make the changes with a
Yeah.
quick email suggestion,
Yeah.
right? And then we'll just approve those amended minutes with the minutes from our last meeting and our next meeting. Does that work?
Yep.
Okay, so,
Do you want to wordsmith it, or do you want?
either or. Why don't, since you took the time to highlight that, why don't you send me something, and I'm
Okay.
sure it'll be fine,
Okay.
and we'll move that to Catherine. Okay. And then, since that was the only minutes that we were looking at this evening, there's no other minutes, we'll have our school committee joint meeting with Wenham, BOS, Hamilton BOS, and FinCom as well for the next go-around. Presumably, we won't have to, as it'll be our second meeting from that time period. 60 days, 30 days, or 3
3
meetings will likely
Whatever's latest.
fall on 30 days when we're in the thick of budget season. But outside of that, when things are a little bit more interspersed, spaced out in the fall, we have a little more time, and we fall on the 3rd meeting. Okay? All right, then. Any other questions or topics for discussion?
No.
One, just procedural, so.
Yeah.
I can ask this offline, so when we go to the Board of Ed meeting, do we have to notify ourselves as a member of the FinCom, or can we just go as a parent? Like, if we want to speak and ask questions.
Oh, a school committee meeting?
School
Yeah.
committee meeting?
So when they have their, the 23rd, I think you said? No, it got moved to
Yep.
January
Third, you,
3rd.
January 3rd, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, it's
Yeah.
right here.
you're gonna have
So when I
meetings.
go on the 3rd, and I want to ask questions, do I have to notify myself as a member of the
Are
Wenham
we- are we
FinCom?
there, Alex, as an official capacity?
Or-
Not in official
No.
capacity.
Okay, yeah,
You'd be a resident guest.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I would assume just follow whatever protocol they normally have, and I don't think FinCom requirements would carry over that you
Okay,
identify such. I hope they recognize you though, as a FinCom member
and listen.
and
Thank you.
and a contributor to our town's finances.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, then I guess that closes it for tonight. I'll move to adjourn Wenham FinCom at 7:22.
Second?
Thank you, David. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Very good.
Thanks very much.